Again, it gives me a great pleasure indeed to introduce the resource person of the second session of this day, Dr. S. Bharati, Assistant Professor of Srinivasa Ramanujan Center, Shastra deemed to be University, Kumbakonam. She has participated and presented papers, chaired sessions in various national and international seminars. She has also organized workshops on research methodology at national level. She has published research articles in UGC Care and Scopus indexed journals as well as edited books. Besides, she has translated poetry anthologies, short story collections, and novels in Tamil language. She has been awarded Best Faculty Award and Best Translator Award in 2020 by Cap Comorin Trust India. Her areas of interest and expertise are research methodology and academic writing, American literature, Indian writing in English, diasporic literature, children's literature, contemporary literary theory, and eco literature. Dr. S. Bharati is present here amidst us to share her noble ideas on usage of language in research proposal writing. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Jyoti, for your elegant introduction. First of all, I would like to record my sincere and heartfelt thanks to the organizers and Cape Comorin Trust as well as Lavender Literary Club for inviting me. Only yesterday I came to know about this workshop, and within a short duration, I thought of presenting on language, the use of language in project proposal. So, though I have selected this topic as project proposal, you can apply it to any kind of academic writing, be it your thesis or MA thesis or MPhil thesis or journal papers, whatever it may be. But in general, I'm going to focus on the usage of language. So before beginning on the topic, let me present my screen to you. Give me a second. Yes, I think. Am I sharing my screen? Is it visible?
Yet to be seen, ma'am.
Not yet.
Fine. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
So let me begin with my topic. That is the usage of language in research proposal writing. So years ago, when I started my career as a language teacher and a researcher in different areas of humanities and social sciences, say like media and gender studies, critical discourse analysis, and publishing academic writings. So all these were a kind of necessary luxury to have an internationally oriented CV. But nowadays, it is more than that. It is a kind of mandatory step for the market of indexed journals. So I'm also a reviewer for several publications in English. So the demand for this task is particularly noteworthy in some academically emergent countries like our country, India. And this experience sometimes requires me to assume a different role as a non-native speaker, even though I can contribute based on my knowledge evaluation. So finally, we should not forget that style, clarity, grammar, and impeccable wording, in other words, the formal aspects which are important as the content itself, be it in any type of research, be it in any stream apart from your language and literature. So I'm speaking from my own personal experience. However, at this point, it is easy to imagine that throughout the world, there is a significant number of reviewers who have to make their suggestions and give advice about a text written in a language that is probably neither the language of the reviewers nor the referees, like our universal language, English. So now let me begin with these few words on the usage of language, the role of language, especially in academic writing. So when we talk about this academic writing, language is a kind of tool which aids in the successful propagation of our research projects, research proposals, thesis, and so on. Right? And here I would like to present a checklist of project proposals. Since I have limited my area to project proposal, but you can apply this to any of your research areas or academic writing. So when talking about this project proposal, so it begins with an introduction like any other projects or thesis, and moves on with the definition, then comes the title, then comes your objectives of the research, and how well you establish your points using a particular methodology, and finally you come up with your expected results. So there are certain pre-submission tasks like checking the aesthetics, the structure and language of your project proposal or your research paper, whatever it may be. And the first step involved here is planning an outline. So essentially, this planning of an outline is an introduction. It is like an abstract which summarizes the project proposal, and it also hooks up the audience. So it is like a face to your thesis, be it MPhil thesis or MA thesis or PhD thesis or any kind of project proposals. So you need to think about the problem which you're tackling in your research, and the probable solution which you're going to propose over there. And you have to define step by step the method for your solution and why this is best course of action which you're taking over there, and the conclusion which reinforces what you have done in your proposal. So all these requires a kind of language, and this language is a kind of tool, as I told you earlier, which carries out what you have already done. So it reaches to the mass, it reaches to the public or the target audience. So that is why language is essential, language is important. And in the first half of my lecture, so I'll be talking about how to write introduction with some samples, introduction, middle, as well as conclusion with some possible samples which I have clipped and put over there in the PPT. And in the second half, I will be talking about certain writing techniques. Probably teachers of English, ELT experts, you might be knowing, but for the other people belonging to other departments, because I have seen many of my colleagues coming with their papers which they want to submit in SCI or Scopus Index journal. They come for language correction. So I find so many interesting things to be changed. So if you learn what you need to change, it will be better. There is no need to depend on other people. And nowadays, technology has grown to a great extent. So I'm going to talk about certain tools which are available online, free of cost, and some are premium, where you need to pay a little to get more, right? So I will discuss all these things in the second half of my lecture. And you can also post questions. So questions are always welcome, right? So while planning your outline, you should think about your target audience to whom you're going to present this. Whether you're going to present it to a group of knowledgeable persons who are in the same field as you are, or for the general audience. So is it a technical paper or a general paper? So based on that, you have to plan the outline, and then you need to hook your audience in the introductory part itself, because like the saying goes, face is the index of mind. Similarly, the introduction part is the one which entices your audience throughout your paper. So having a hook in your introduction is vital for catching the interest of your audience. So if they are not interested in the proposal or whatever you write, uh, then it will be much harder to convince your audience of the benefits and therefore getting the approval. And most probably in the research proposals which you write applying for grants, right? And that is if they do not dismiss the whole document at a cursory glance. So if you don't want your document to be rejected at the first glance, then you need to learn certain techniques which entices your audience, especially in the abstract, especially in the introductory part itself. So now let me move on to the next slide.
Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
there are a couple of requests. It's in the chat box. The
Yes.
slides visible enough.
Are the
They're
size visible?
Can it be
Is
zoomed,
there
ma'am?
yeah, you want me to zoom the slide?
Yes,
No,
ma'am, please.
click the present button.
Okay, fine, fine.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, got it. So
Thank you, ma'am.
yeah. So I stopped with this, right? So let me continue then. So here, if you come across any striking statistics when looking into a problem you're tackling, so you have to use it with your first line, like the face is the index of mind, like the saying goes. Your first line in the introduction is the one which carries your image to the readers, to the target audience. So that is why you need to hook your audience in the introductory part itself. So you should think about some uh, catchy phrases that doesn't necessarily be bombastic words, but which clearly carries out what you intend to convey. So that is how you have to hook up your audience in the introductory part. So this is the statement of a problem from a research paper. So you can see in the first two paragraphs where this looms a problem statement, which there's no time in laying out when the issue with the current of the thing is why the reader should care about the particular issue which is presented in the paper. And most importantly, although here Bloom is talking about complex nuclear theories and about how clearly demonstrates the evidence which the researcher is backing up with some claims. When you look at the language, it is simple enough that everyone can understand the issue. So that is how you have to formulate your research statement or problem of your research. And the next step is to talk about your objectives. So here I have highlighted the two objectives which were presented in the research paper. So I propose to review the available literature using Yucca Mountain as a possible repository for spent nuclear fuel. And here the researcher has given two objectives. One is to explain the criteria for suitable repository, and another one is to determine whether Yucca Mountain meets these criteria. When you look at the language, when you give a closer look at how it has been presented, you can find that by stating exactly what the solution will be to tackle the problem in fewer words, then it will win over the readers. The fewer the words, the more effective it will be. So you'll be learning all these things in my next part of the lecture, when I will talk about tightening the sentences. So how to make the sentence precise and concise. Right? And coming to your conclusive part, like the introductory part, conclusive part is also important. So here, when you look at this conclusion for that research paper, it is a kind of textbook conclusion which reminds the readers what the problem is and what the objectives are, and about the timeline of the project. And here, I would like to remind you that you should not include any new information. So whatever new information you got, you should include that in your analysis part, in your result and discussion part. So this conclusion is like an overall summing up of your entire research or your entire project. So you need not state any new information over here. So if you do so, if you include some new information over here, then definitely it will confuse your audience, it will confuse your readers. So that is better to avoid these new informations. So whatever new information you got, you can present it in your result and discussion. So this conclusion is a kind of summing up of your entire research article or project proposal. So let me move on to some of the common issues in the usage of English language. So these are some basic and advanced issues which I found in many research papers which I reviewed, and majorly in the thesis. So here I would like to suggest a few online tools. Some of them are paid softwares and some of them are free softwares, where you can check your spelling, grammar, punctuational errors, and so on. So some of the basic features any tool will give you are the spelling check, grammar check, and punctuational check. Whereas there are some advanced features like correcting the run-on sentences or rambling sentences, correcting the sentence fragments, and also suggestions for the loose sentence structure. Otherwise, it is called as rambling sentences. So let me share some of the softwares for grammar checker. So on the left-hand side, you have free versions, and on the right-hand side, I have presented some of the interesting websites which have both free and paid versions. So here in free versions, you have Scribens, Reverso, Grammar Check, Grammarix, small SEO tools. But I did a kind of research where I found the first two to be more effective than Grammar Check, Grammarix, and small SEO tools. So these are just basic. When you have some urgency, you can make use of this. But I personally recommend the first two, the Scribens and Reverso. Both of them are free tools where you can check your grammar, and the things which they check for are your punctuational errors, spelling errors, and common grammatical errors in English. Whereas you have free and paid softwares. On the topmost, you have Grammarly. So that's why I put Grammarly in the first spot. And even in some educational institutions, they have personally purchased this Grammarly, which is easily available for the faculties. And free version is also available. And in free version, um, there are some disadvantages. Like it won't give you suggestion for better words. It will just highlight. It will show you where the mistake lies, and it will not give you some suggestions to correct. So that is the only issue with free version. Otherwise, uh, Grammarly is a wonderful software for checking your thesis or any kind of research material. And you have Philbot and Pro Writing Aid. And if you are writing in some other language other than English, I would like to strongly recommend this White Smoke, because it is one of the best multilingual grammar checker, which checks your punctuational errors, grammar errors, errors in the usage of articles of preposition, and many more. And for 55 different languages, you can use this White Smoke software. And at the last says this Ginger software. I don't recommend this Ginger software. If you want to check your grammar, and if you want your writing to be academic writing to be error free, better you can subscribe to Grammarly. Either you can go for free version or paid version, that is up to you. And these are some of the interesting features included in every grammar checking software which I had been talking about. So they give you suggestions, that is the fluency. They take care of your fluency and readability. So immediately after checking, it will tell you about the target audience. So what kind of readers will be comfortable with your writing, whether it is advanced learners or it is in the basic level. So it will give you suggestion. So based on that, you can change it. And it will also provide some word choice, like synonyms, when you want to change a particular word to a better sounding word. And of course, all these grammar checking softwares, they do have plagiarism detection, but I don't recommend to use this plagiarism detection using these softwares, because they are primarily meant for checking your grammar and not for plagiarism. And even if you experiment with it, there will be 40 or 50% of plagiarism when you put the same material in Turnitin or Arcant. So I suggest Turnitin or Arcant for plagiarism checking. And also these kind of softwares, they give you a suggestion on inclusive language on which can be replaced. And they will give you suggestion on the formality level, whether it is informal or semi-formal or formal. They will be able to detect and tell you, give you suggestions. And there are still more advanced additional corrections are there in paid grammar checking softwares. So coming again to our project proposal, for any successful project proposal, you need a unique style, and you should be clear with what you're going to say in your writing with good grammar. So this grammar part will be taken care of those softwares, available softwares, and impeccable wording. In other words, the formal aspects of language. So basically, you may have a question, how to write a great project proposal. So for this, these elements should be considered. First, clarity and conciseness. So this can be achieved by tightening your rambling or run-on sentences, then by rectifying your sentence fragments and adding hedgings. So these are the things I'm going to deal with now. And Apart from these grammar checking softwares, there are also online paraphrasing tools which are available free of cost. Talking about this paraphrasing, it is a kind of a blessing in disguise for academicians, right? It saves our time a lot. Um, and a lot of time you might have noticed, despite citing, it will show either in your Erkan or Turnitin when you put it in that plagiarism checking software. Even though you have cited, it will show it as plagiarized content, which means actually you have cited, but not an appropriate citation. For example, you have taken the exact lines which are presented by a particular researcher in a paper, and you have presented it in your research, and you have marked the page number or whatever it is, reference number, say in the bracket. But still, when it shows, it means that you can go for this paraphrasing. For that, you can make use of these paraphrasing tools, which saves your time a lot. And so the first one is Quillbot. So Quillbot can be used both for checking your grammar as well as paraphrasing. And apart from that, you have pre-post SEO, small SEO tools, EditPad, then paraphraseonline.com. All these online paraphrasing tools are pretty simple. You have to just cut your paper and just post it over there, and it will ask you how much percentage of paraphrasing you need, if you need 100% or 80%. So even after revising, after all, it is a machine, it is just a tool. So we humans need to look into to check the clarity of the thought. Even though they supply us with synonymous words, we have to recheck whether this synonymous word can be used for our academic writing. So this is where some people fail to check, right? And then comes the role of hedging in writing. So hedging is nothing but the use of linguistic devices to express hesitation or uncertainty, and also to demonstrate politeness and indirectness. So people tend to use these hedging language for a variety of purposes. But there are a few main areas where you need to use hedging. First thing is for minimizing the possibility of another academic opposing claims which are being made. So when you want to sound less harsh, or when you want to be polite, then you can make use of these hedgings. And hedgings can also be used to confirm the currently accepted style of academic writing. And this allows you to devise a politeness strategy where you will be able to acknowledge that there are many flaws in what you claim. So, of course, whatever research we make, that is not final, right? So that is why we search again and again. That is why it is called as research, isn't it? So whatever we claim may not be correct in future. Who knows? So that is why you need to devise a politeness strategy, and here our hedging comes in handy. So we are going to look at this approach to make statements and claims, expressing your opinions and answering questions by using this hedging. So this you should show with a focus on how you can use this hedging as a tool in your writing. So if you write academic English, your most likely already familiar with hedging as a linguistic device, as it is extensively used in academic writing. But if you're not quite sure what hedging language is, we will be taking a quick look at its definition before moving on to look at some of the examples of hedge words and phrases in use, and then the importance of linguistic device like hedging in academic writing. And finally, we will also look at why we should avoid overusing these hedging words and phrases in our writing. So, what is this hedging in academic writing? It is often believed that in academic writing, particularly in cited writing, which is factual, simply to convey facts and information. However, it is now recognized that an important feature of academic writing is the concept of cautious language, careful language. Often we call it as hedging or vague language. In other words, it is necessary to make decisions of your claims which you're making. So different subjects prefer to do this in different ways. So let me move on to the next slide. So the main purpose of adding hedging is to express your hesitation or uncertainty and to demonstrate politeness and indirectness. So in the right hand side, I have presented hedging language, some of the hedging words. So these are some of the hedging words which we often use in our academic writing, like believe, assume, suggest, seem, tend, appear, right? So here you see an example for a sentence with hedging and without hedging. First, I have used hedging in the first sentence. Weisman suggested that polar bears hibernate, presumably to conserve the fat in their body. So you see the word suggested. So it is an example for hedging. And in the second one, Weisman found that polar bears hibernate, conserve fat in their body. So you can compare the first one and the second one, and you can tell which one is better, which sounds better. Naturally, the first one, because hedging expresses not just uncertainty, it also indirectly points out something, right? So that is what we have to do in our systematic research. And moving on to some examples, these are some of the sentences where I have used hedging words like maybe, may seem, commitment to some, or seeing, right? So it may be said that the commitment to some of the social and economic concepts was less strong than it is now. So when I'm talking about some concept, or when I'm talking about some area where I'm not sure, then you can use this modal auxiliary may, maybe, or may appear, or may see, or see when you're not sure. And let me move on to the next one. These are some of the introductory verbs like seem, tend, look like, appear to be. So these are introductory verbs which you can use in your academic writing. And apart from that, there are certain lexical verbs, modal verbs, and adverbs which also have this function like believe, assume, suggest, and all your modal verbs like will, must, would, could, might for the slightest possibility of things, and often, sometimes, usually, and the modal adverbs like probably, possibly. Most probably you can find this kind of words in research papers, right? So in order to make your research sound better, you need to use these hedging words. And This is a continuation of the previous slide. So you have modal adjectives like certain, definite, clear, and modal nouns too, like assumption, probability, possibility. So this you can make use of in your clause, like it could be the case that, or it might be suggested that, or there is every hope that, or the study possibly claims, or it is very important to develop some concept or idea, or it is useful to study. So these are some examples of how you can make use of hedging in the beginning of your sentences. So these ones, two clause plus adjectives and that clauses, you can make use of either in your introductory part or even in your conclusive part. And these are some of the introductory phrases which you can use in your academic writing. Like when something is likely, then you can make use of the phrase, it appears that, or when there is an argument, when you want to reinforce your point, then you can say it can be argued that. Or when you are making some statement based on some ideology or some kind of assumption, then you can tell we can assume that. And when you're talking about something which may or may not, when there is a fluctuation, then you can use this phrase. It is likely to be the case that, means you're not sure, you're not damn sure about that. And it is probable or it is conceivable when you're not clear with the idea, when you cannot have a solid evidence, when you don't have a solid proof, then you can make use of these phrases. And finally, when you want to give an overall conclusion or an end, then you can make use of this, like it can be concluded that. And when you want to describe something the data indicates. And you can also use vague language, like about, kind of, sort of, seems like, but I suggest you to use the ones which I have given above. And here are some more examples. Another possible area for further research. So like that, you can conclude your thesis, or you can conclude your project report, close your project proposal. And one possible implication of this is that, like when it is going to likely give some kind of effect, so that you can state, or the evidence from this research. So when you're making your discussion based on your research, then based on the evidence, what you want to suggest. So that you can state in this way. And the data collected from this study appears to support the assumption. Then what is that assumption? You can make use of that. And look at the next few phrases. The combined data from these studies appears to indicate there may be a link, or it seems likely that these results are due to the fact that, or a possible explanation for this discrepancy might be. So all these represent some statement where the researcher or the writer is not sure about it, right? So that is where these phrases like might be, possibly, all these comes in handy. And as I was talking earlier, there are also some problems with hedging, that is overuse. Like the saying goes, too much of anything is good for nothing. The overuse of hedging will lead your reader to wonder often, where is this author of this particular writing, and what do they really want people to understand about the particular issue you're talking about. So that is why you have to justifiably use hedging in your research. And make a note that you should not overuse this hedging words. So when you check online, you can have a ready-made list of all these hedging words available. You can save it in a file, and whenever you have an use, you can put that phrases into use, right? And in general, while using these hedging words and phrases, you should also be conscious about the choice. What is the purpose? Why you're using this in your writing? Otherwise, you will run to the risk of yourself sounding like you don't have much confidence in your thoughts, ideas, or opinion, right? So that is why overuse of hedgings will spoil the sport. And this is another interesting software, Typely proofreading software. And this identifies hedging language words and phrases in your text. And it will provide you with an opportunity to consider the results. And depending on how strong or weak your hedging should be, it will suggest you, it will auto-suggest. And you can rewrite accordingly. Either you can take the suggestions or you can leave it at that end, right? And so my question is, what are the advantages of this clear project proposal or a clear research writing? So basically, these proposals, which tend to have clarity, have the viability of a project or a program. So in order to increase this clarity, we should have a kind of route map or roadmap. So we need to think about the structure and organization of your research proposal. You have to align it appropriately. Even though your language is good, grammar is good, the arrangement of the ideas, if you present the ideas jumbled, then definitely it will not be a success. So that is why we need a clear, concise project proposal. And you should write with confidence, but at the same time, don't disregard other ideas. You think about your proposal, which you're going to convey. So your attitude will be there in your proposal. And once you identify an important problem, you are the right person to do the work, because it is you who have identified the problem. And once you identify and find answers to these problems which are to be discussed, you will be aware of the relevant studies. That is your background literature or literature survey, which the previous talker has been talking about, right? And keep in mind, while writing, you should follow the instruction which are provided by the funding agencies as far as project proposals or research grants are concerned. So please don't run to the risk of having your science downgraded or your project proposal rejected because you didn't follow the instruction. So that also we have to note. And these are some of the basic concepts when you're writing your research project or research grant. So make it readable, means it should be simple, clear, and concise. Do not try to use bombastic words in your research writing. Of course, in a novel or in poetry, these bombastic words will be appreciated, but here, call spade a spade. Be direct in what you want to address and make the level of detail appropriate, and find the financial resources available and other guidelines. And after having a clear hypothesis, goals, and approaches, then you can proceed with your proposal. And however, I have identified some common errors in many of the proposals. The first thing is they don't fit in the agency's mission. So be it your research paper which you want to send to a particular journal or a research grant proposal, first check with the particular mission of the particular agency to which you are going to apply. Follow the guidelines, and mostly these project proposals, they are rejected at preliminary stage due to the lack of proofreading, so which shows the carelessness of the writer, right? So check your grammar, spelling, formulae, numbering in math especially, right? And you can avoid some common pitfalls. When you're writing only for specialists in your field, then you can make use of jargons. Otherwise, you should avoid it. Jargons or technical terms which could be understood only by people of your field, but not by others. So make sure that whatever you say reaches your readers, reaches your audience. And while proposing a project that does not meet the funding call or criteria, most probably it will get rejected. And so you should give some enough time to think over the kind of project which you want to take up, and think about the budgeting. You'll be learning all these things in future, right? So unclear methodology also leads to the rejection of your proposal or any academic writing. So concentrate on the methodology part too, and finally coming down to the sentence structure. So most possible error, which it's not an error, but no, that rambling sentence, loose sentence structures, fragments, so which doesn't look good on your academic writing. This is one of the major issue which I have found in many of the researches. So we call them as rambling or run-on sentences. They contain several independent clauses in a row to point out that they sound clumsy and sometimes exhausting. So how can we correct it? So you can cut the sentence either into two by axing the words. That is especially that ly words, right? And you can stick to one particular voice. So I suggest active voice rather than passive voice in your research. And you can remove extra punctuation, unwanted punctuations which you make in your paper, and you can replace negative statements with more positive statements, and replace stuffy words with simpler ones. And also you need to remove redundancies, and some of the possible ways by which you can tighten your sentences, or by reducing the prepositions, for example, cutting down words like in order to, start to, and you should also try to mix that word and replace this thing with a better word, better sounding word. And you can eliminate deadwood words. Deadwood words are words which are no longer in use. So that is why they are called as deadwood words. For example, there is, there are, you can replace these or just eliminate these kind of words in the beginning of your sentence, and you can use contractions. And finally, I would like to give you a tip which you can remember easily, fanboys, for memorizing this coordinating conjunctions. So you can make use of these coordinating conjunctions to tighten your rambling sentences. So these are some of the common deadwood words which you can find in many of the research papers. You can avoid this by the ones which I have suggested in the right-hand side, right? And these are some examples which I have picked in. Madam, do I have enough time? A couple of minutes, sir? Excuse me?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. 10 minutes more.
Okay, okay, thank you, thank you. So look at these examples with wordy and revised version. The grant proposals were reviewed by the students. So here, the problem is the writer has used passive voice, which is somewhat wordy. So you can revise it, make it compact. Same thing you're presenting over here in the revised version. The students reviewed the grant proposal. So this is what you want to convey, right? So your focus should be on the students rather than on the grant proposals that reviewed, right? So this verb reviewed shows that your focus should not be on this one and rather than on the students. So bring it to the subject position, make it active. So active sentences are always welcome in academic writing. So this is another example. Let me skip and move on to the next slide. So you can cut down empty phrases like all things being equal or all things considered as a matter of fact. These are some of the commonly used empty phrases just to fill the page or just to increase the word limit. So we have some word limit like 2000 words or 2500. So if you are not able to achieve that, researchers, they tend to use this kind of empty phrases in their writing. So better to cut down these empty phrases, like as a matter of fact, at the present time, due to the fact that, so most of the time I have come across this in many research papers. So this is another example of wordy sentence, like all things being equal. What I'm trying to say is that, in my opinion, all students should, in the final analysis, have the right to vote for all intents and purposes. So here you have so many empty words, like all things being equal. Then what I am trying to say is, so these are all unnecessary words which you can cut down. And look at the revised version. I guess you will like the revised version. Students should have the right to vote, so which reaches the audience immediately, right? So that is why you need to tighten these run-on sentences. So this is another aspect, another area where you have to look into. So you should avoid using noun forms of verbs, and you can always replace it with vague nouns. For example, look at the first sentence, which is quite wordy. The presentation of the arguments by the students was, actually it should be where, was convincing. So the revised version can look, this is an active form. The students presented their arguments convincingly, or you can say the students argued convincingly, which sounds probably better or definitely better, right? So these are the list of references I have picked up. You can, I will share this with the organizer. You can go through all these reference sites where you can find some interesting tools. And I have also attached some YouTube presentations on how to tighten the rambling sentence, how to correct the sentence fragments. Due to the want of time, I'm closing earlier. I think time is 8:05 now. I can give you some 5 minutes for questions.
I thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful speech and for sharing valuable information on usage of language in research proposal writing, especially on online paraphrasing tools, and how to avoid common pitfalls in preparing proposal. This is very useful for the participants, for us. Now, participants, it is a time to post your question in the chat box. You can raise your question to our resource person, Dr. Bharati. And one more information I want to share you, that feedback link will be posted after the query session in the chat box. Yes.
So any questions are
Dr.
welcome.
Bharati.
So research.
Dr. Bharati.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I'm Professor Bala from Malaysia, University of Malaysia, Kelantan.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if we are comparable to the science and social science, there are differences, to publish in a high impact journal. For my past experience, if you want to publish papers in high rank paper in social sciences, especially in the qualitative nature, and
Yes.
you want to publish in American journal because it's all the top
Mm.
journals come from America, USA,
Yes,
Europe,
yes.
and some
Exactly, as you said.
Japan. So
Uh,
this paper very much influenced by the philosophical of that particular journals.
mm, mm,
Sometimes you need to
mm.
write in their native language. Okay, I have experience.
Exactly.
I published
Mm,
one number one
mm,
paper in the world. That is
mm,
my area, industrial relation journal in Australia
mm,
based, but it's a number one in the
mm,
world. It's very high
mm,
rank.
mm,
So I
mm,
have no choice. I have to work with one of the professor in Australia,
mm,
and the data has come from Malaysia. But
mm.
we work together and able to publish. Otherwise, it's very difficult
Ah,
because
yes,
science
sir.
is very basic on the
Ah,
data. They don't care about language. You see, the computer science, only five
mm,
pages or 3 pages they can publish. Because they
ah,
only based on that.
ah,
So they are actually getting
ah,
more popularity, getting high
ah.
position and professor.
But
Where
even these, excuse me, sir, sorry for intruding you.
okay,
Uh,
all right. Okay.
Honest, most of these engineering researchers, they want to
Yeah,
publish high impact SEI journals, and
yeah,
their work is getting rejected because of the language.
yeah,
So
exactly.
they have to
No, no,
discuss
language is
this
one
language
doctor, but
part.
the
Yeah.
philosophical
Uh,
behind, like you see,
yes,
social
yes.
sciences very much ontology. Like you see, you are
I do
which
agree with you.
whether
I do agree with
positivism
you.
or
Uh,
non-positivism or you
uh,
Americanize or European, the way you're
mm,
writing. So we from
mm,
Asian, no choice. We have to work
mm.
with someone
Yeah.
from the other part of the world, and then the
Yes.
nature, the language. So this I
Uh,
think I mean
uh,
your points were excellent. You're trying to say that the language that we're going to
mm,
use, and but these are the
mm,
experience we
mm,
face from Asian side.
mm,
So, what is your good advice so that everyone in this room can, because everybody want
uh,
to publish high impact journal, like people in science.
uh,
So, like my
uh,
friends, every month
uh,
he publish 5 papers
mm,
and Q1, Q2, he
mm,
very
mm,
happy and
mm,
share. But he's a scientific,
uh,
not like ours.
uh,
Ours is like storyline.
exactly,
You want to
exactly.
run it. So that's what
Mm,
my concern, doctor.
mm,
Not only in India but worldwide, everything. Thank you, doctor. Bye.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. That's a wonderful question from you, sir. Uh, so, as a reviewer, I had been reviewing not only social science papers. I had reviewed engineering papers, papers in physics, then biology, microbiology papers. So what I found is they are pretty sound in literature survey. Some of the researchers are so wonderful. They have done a very good literature survey, as the previous speaker was talking about the literature survey part, right? Uh, so the survey of literature was quite good, but there is some slip in how they present this literature survey. Of course, they have worked with some 200 or 300 reputed journals. They have picked in the information, but when they try to fit in the context, there, they lack professionalism on how to present these ideas. As non-native speakers, we are all not native speakers almost over here in India. And as non-native speakers, we are at least those people who do not major in English language, they don't know how to present it in a particular systematic order. So that is where these papers get rejected. Recently, I would like to give you an example of one of my colleagues who was doing on cancer research. And her research was so good. There is novelty in her research, and the experiment was quite good. But still, at the secondary stage, they wanted to revise her paper. Then that colleague came back to me, asked for revision, so in formatting. So these are the things which, other than this novelty in research, other than focusing on literature survey, all these subject experts can help you with. And this is a part which makes your paper a good one, readable one, so that it will reach all the readers who are interested in your particular area. I hope that I have answered your question, sir. Yes.
Ma'am, another question from Albert
Yes.
Mark. Do all
Thank
these
you,
rules
yes, ma'am.
do all these rules apply to writing a study in another language as well?
Yes, of course. Not only in English language, whatever language you use, a language is a tool, right? That is why in my title, I didn't focus as English language, be it Spanish, be it French, or in whatever language you present your research. Language is a tool which brings you close to your audience, brings you close to your readers. So you have to use some nuances, some techniques through which you can make it presentable, make it readable to those readers or audience. I hope that I have answered her question.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions from participants? You can post your question in the chat box, please.
Doctor, one more. Sorry, the organizer. Doctor,
Yes, sir.
in room got a lot of young lecturer. You know, they are doing masters and PhD, but they don't have motivation to publish. How to motivate them? They don't want to publish. We're trying our best to publish. They're
Yes,
like
yes.
giving a lot of research, but they complete the PhD masters. By end of the day, I told them, what is use you publish? You finish your PhD masters, but you don't publish. So what is encouragement to them? Because I keep on telling them publish or perish. You know, you don't publish, you perish, because otherwise, who going to read
That
your
is
thesis?
quite
You
an
know.
interesting observation, sir. Dr. Balakrishnan, that is quite an interesting observation which you have made. Even in my university, I had my own students. So what I do is I set myself as an example before my students. So this is how you have to conduct your research. This is how you have to get it published. So after publishing, what will be the effect in future? So someone is going to read your paper. See, this is the comment which I have got from one of the reader. That is how I try to motivate my colleagues. Often I used to share useful links where they can read journals, free journals, especially because free is a lucrative word. So I hook them up with this free word, and then little bit by little bit of effort, I try to rope in. And there are many of my colleagues who had been interested and inspired, and they have started writing research papers. That is my experience, my personal experience. So thing is, we have to discuss with them. So what kind of new research is going on in their particular field, in their area. And if we are not familiar with our colleagues' research area also, we can just inquire what you're doing. And these people are doing this much. See, that particular X or Y has presented 2 ACA papers. What are you doing? So like that, you can try to kindle their things up.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I think no more questions from participants.
Okay.
I thank our resource person, Dr. Bharati, for sharing wonderful information, and this is a thought-provoking session for us, ma'am. Once again, I thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Thank you, Pandya Raja, madam.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So I have given my mail ID over there.
Okay.
So anyone who is interested in writing research paper, or if you want to get any reviewers' comment, they are most welcome.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Sure.
Not only in social sciences, since I have majored in science too, I also review microbiology papers, environmental science papers too. Yeah,
yes,
that is an additional information. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Very nice to hear from you. I thank all the participants for participating in this first day session.